Hi, I'm Will Marriott, and this is my historiographical overview of Gabriel Prosser and Gabriel's Rebellion, a key moment in African American resistance in history. I chose to focus on Gabriel Prosser because his life and actions offer a powerful entry point into the history of early Black resistance in America. His story, while not always widely taught, which is a shame, raises important questions about what resistance looked like under slavery, how it was organized, and how it's remembered today. As someone whose efforts challenge the foundations of an oppressive system, Gabriel represents more than just a moment in history. He represents an idea and a legacy that still resonates today. I think even and especially today, many should look towards what he began, and what I believe he began. Um, because although how unfortunate the rebellion went, it still played such a huge part in American history related to African and African Americans. Who was Gabriel Prosser? Gabriel was born into slavery on a tobacco plantation in Henrico County, Virginia. As a blacksmith, he was able to have more contact with other enslaved people, which allowed him to create and form almost like an underground network that later helped him organize a large upscale uprising that involved hundreds of enslaved men. This plan included storming Richmond, seizing weapons, and holding any officials they found hostage. He was influenced by Haitian and French revolutions, the contemporary revolutions that happened in Haiti and France in the 1700s and early 1800s. Gabriel believed enslaved people were also entitled to liberty and justice. It's reported that he read about, I'm going to butcher this, Touchant, Touchant, Touchant literature and embraced egalitarian ideas. Unfortunately, due to a storm that delayed the attack, betrayals happened within the group, and the plan for the revolt was leaked. Officials in Richmond found out, and then Gabriel and many others were arrested and eventually hung. Gabriel's Rebellion. Context and importance. Gabriel's Rebellion started to occur early in the 1800s, a time marked by deep divides between Federalists and Jeffersonian Republicans, and a large anxiety about uprisings among the enslaved populations. The rebellion exposed the hypocrisy of this country, a country that claimed liberty and freedom while upholding and still sustaining slavery. This one was one of the earliest organized slave revolts in U.S. history. I feel like I have to repeat that, even though you're reading it, because Gabriel's plot was one of the first and largest scaled coordinated slave conspiracies in the U.S., and it predated Nat Turner's rebellion. That despite its failure, the rebellion became a long-standing symbol of African American resistance to oppression. One of my sources is Edgerton's book, Gabriel's Rebellion. It's a foundational academic text that outlines the causes, planning, and aftermath of Gabriel's rebellion. The book portrays Gabriel and his followers as politically aware actors, not passive victims, who actively planned the resistance and knew what they were getting into. Edgerton draws parallels to the Haitian Revolution and French revolutionary ideals to situate Gabriel within a global context of liberty movements. Edgerton basically claims that Gabriel had a broader mindset and that his rebellion would have reinforced a larger movement, not just in the US, but potentially even across the world. The book also illustrates how Jeffersonian ideals of liberty excluded Black people and exposed systematic hypocrisy. So, I'm going to explain 3 reviews of Edgerton's work by Sidbury, Hodges, and Morris. James Sidbury commends Edgerton's focus on the voices and actions of enslaved people, but he critiques some of the narrative choices Edgerton makes. Graham Hodges appreciates Edgerton's arguments, but he points out the dense academic language, which limits accessibility for a general audience and general readers. I even had a hard time reading it, and I only read a little bit. As big as my vocabulary is, I had a hard time trying to understand some of the viewpoints he was trying to express. Next, Christopher Morris frames the rebellion within the history of labor and economic resistance, emphasizing that enslaved people were active historical agents. Edgerton's work basically supports Morris's framework and opinions of the rebellion. Altogether, this is a slide explaining Nischel's work, Whispers of Rebellion. Nischel's is more focused on how the story of Gabriel has been told across time rather than just the rebellion itself. He looks at how conspirators were recruited and organized, and how historians have remembered and written about the event. Like Edgerton, Nischel's places Gabriel's revolt in the context of worldwide uprisings against monarchy and slavery, not just for African American enslaved people, but globally enslaved people. His work shows how Gabriel's story has been remembered, forgotten, and reimagined in American history and culture. These are 3 reviews for Nischel's work. Nischel's work that I will be explaining. The review by Walter Rucker commends Nischel's for his accessible yet scholarly approach to narrating the conspiracy. Edgerton, who wrote Gabriel's Rebellion, also reviewed Nischel's work. He appreciating the new perspective, though he suggests Nischel's may underplay some of the political aspects. I agree with. Edgerton talked a lot about Jeffersonian Republican ideas and expressed how political Gabriel's Rebellion really was, and I think that something Nischel's really did underplay or just didn't elaborate too much on. Next is Lawrence Swiniger, who emphasizes Nischel's success in analyzing how narratives shape historical memory, and Gines Rodriguez highlights the level of planning, leadership, and complexity involved in the plot as depicted by Nischel's. Gabriel, in comparative political context, just like Edgerton's book. Simon Newman analyzes both Gabriel's Rebellion and Fry's Rebellion to show how grassroots resistance movements threatened an elite control. The ruling class saw Gabriel's plan as a warning sign that revolutionary ideals could ignite widespread revolt. His rebellion showed that liberty and equality were being claimed by all people, not just white citizens. Now I'm going to discuss Black Thunder and the literary perspective. Arna Buntem's Black Thunder fictionalizes Gabriel's revolt, blending literature with historical reflection. It's basically a reimagination of Gabriel's rebellion, telling the story through fiction instead of a historical account. Christine Montgomery analyzes how the novel uses pendulum time, a nonlinear approach that blends past, present, and future, to show how Black resistance has echoed through generations. The novel highlights group agency and solidarity among the conspirators, not just Gabriel's individual heroism. It challenges the dominant framing of freedom as an individual pursuit and focuses instead on community-driven resistance. So, what legacy does Gabriel and his rebellion hold in African American history? His name is now invoked as a symbol of organized resistance and leadership among enslaved people. Even though the rebellion failed, it became a blueprint and an inspiration for later uprisings like Nat Turner's. Gabriel's life had been explored in novels, scholarly texts, and cultural memory, preserving both his impact and what could have been if he had succeeded. He embodies the ongoing fight for equality and freedom that stretches from slavery through the civil rights era and beyond. Key themes of my topic were slave agency and resistance, contradictions in American republicanism, and historical memory and narrative, and transatlantic revolutionary influence. Okay, so thank you so much for listening, and these are my cited sources. Okay, have a good day.